What's happening, my money savvy families? And welcome back to the Do Different Better show, where we transform financial stress into strategic success. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen, CEO of Social Impact Now, Connect Up Institute, and Managing Director of the Integrated Capital Fund. I'm so glad that you're back, and I'm grateful to see you. I hope that you've enjoyed the last couple of weeks of my best of shows. It's hard to believe that we have been on this journey for 1 year together. And I am just so grateful that you all have given me a warm reception with the show. I definitely want to thank the folks at AM 950 for just being big supporters, but most of all, want to thank you and all of the sponsors for really believing in the show and making it such a great success. So thank you. And I'm so excited for the guests that I'm going to be bringing onto the show for the next year. It's going to be a lot more other people coming onto the show, and I just can't wait for you to hear all about it. And there's some pretty big, special people that I think you're really going to enjoy. And soon I'll be launching a brand new website with lots of information and resources for you and your friends. So don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Blue Sky for all the details and the drop date. But let's get back to today's topic. Today, we're going to be diving into a timely issue that's really affecting so many families in the United States, and that is the unexpected cuts to college financial aid packages. If you're feeling blindsided by these changes, you are not alone. I will just tell you, this has been coming up a lot. My son is going back to school. He's going to school for nursing. And so this is something that is even really hit close to home for me. But this is really is important because education costs are on the rise and they are increasing drastically. And when funding changes midstream, families like myself and you find themselves in with huge unexpected bills like dorm fees that suddenly vanish from scholarships, right? So I'm hoping that you're really going to find this really, really valuable information and hopefully gives you a really good perspective of some options that you have to exercise, right? So let's just talk about what are some of the recent changes that have happened. Colleges, both public and private, are adjusting their aid packages due to budget cuts, the policy shifts, and donor shortages. You may have heard in the news maybe about a month ago some of the executive orders that have come out. And while you might not think that they would impact colleges and universities, they actually have. And now you're feeling that shift in your pocketbook. So here's just a quick the one of the things that really brought this to light was a friend of mine discovered recently that her child's full ride scholarship for a university, which was going to cover tuition, dorms, and meals, now has been adjusted to exclude the dorm fees. This is now suddenly going to be adding $19,000 to what she thought was going to be no outside expenses. She's a single mom, and I was like, I knew I went through this myself with my son, but I really didn't think about it until she brought it up to me literally last week. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a great topic for the show because if it's happening to her and it's happening to me, it's probably happening to a lot of you out there. So I thought this would just be a really great episode to have for all of you. And I'm hoping that it'll be useful. But here's a little data for you to kind of put all of this in context. Nearly half of all colleges have reported reducing their financial aid offerings since the pandemic. The National Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators, or NASFAA, have shared this information. So here are just some of the ways that these changes are going to impact your family. It can really start to cause immediate stress on your household budget. It's going to maybe make choices really difficult between taking on more debt that maybe you can't afford to take on. It may make your family decide that to delay college education, maybe for a year or maybe for a little bit longer. It may drive you to actually look for alternative funding. And another way is that, this is really going to affect everybody no matter where you are, whether you live in an urban environment, you live in the suburban area, or if you live in a rural or tribal community. But know that there are some local opportunities that can support you through this very difficult time. So you got this. But I'm going to be sharing with you some immediate steps that you want to take right now, immediately, as soon as you find out that there are some issues that are happening with your financial aid package for your partner, for your spouse, or for a child that may be in your care. So the first thing that you're wanting to do is you need to verify what the change is. This may require you wanting to go actually into the financial aid office and talking to somebody in person as opposed to on the phone or through email. These can be sticky, complicated conversations. And I find for me, I listen better when I'm actually in front of somebody. So contact the college's financial aid office immediately to get all the clarification about what are the stipulations. Is it a hold, meaning that they're still trying to figure it out? Does the school have alternatives? Or is there something else that's going on that you need to be aware of? I want you to ask the reason for the aid reduction and if there's any possibility of reinstatement. Like I said, sometimes some of these things might just be there's a hole because there's a question, or they're waiting for an opportunity or a grant to come in that's going to fund the financial aid package or aspect of the financial aid package that is in question. But you want to make sure that you have a clear snapshot of how much extra money do you actually need. So, and I also find for me, you immediately go into panic mode when you get information like this. So getting all of the objective data, all the objective information, hopefully it's maybe not going to make you feel better, but it's going to give you clarity and really right size your panic. Okay. So then I want you to actually calculate what the true financial gap is. There are some great online tools like College Board's net price calculator to precisely define what your new financial gap is and if that is relegated to a certain aspect of the college experience, whether it be meals, whether it be dorm fees, whether it be something else, whether it's books. There might be other alternatives, and we're going to talk about those in the following segments. Then the next thing I want you to do is I want you to review your family budget and resources. This is where you pull out your budget. And if you don't have one, this is a great time to start one. This is where you want to start to look at where can adjustments realistically be made to be able to close the gap on what it is you're looking to do, whether it's $1,000, $5,000, or $20,000. Start to identify where are the potential short-term sacrifices and reallocations that can be made across your budget, and really think about what's realistic. If your gym membership is $50 and you're saying, "Hey, let's stop going to the gym." I don't know that there's only 12 months in the year. And so is that really going to have the significant impact that you're looking for to be able to close the gap if the gap is like $5,000? So you really want to take a kind of common sense approach to this and not just strip everything away. Strip away the things that actually make sense, right? So there's another option that is related to the appeal process. Many universities have some kind of appeal process. And so you want to check that out. And here are some things that you can think about in crafting an appeal letter. One is you want to be clear and factual. Mention specific changes to your financial circumstances. Maybe it's job loss, maybe it's unexpected medical expenses. To put all of that down concretely so that people get a full picture. Now, you don't have to tell them necessarily what the medical expenses are for, but just say that there's been an illness in the family, that the illness is planned to be short term or long term, and that has had a financial impact. And so you're asking for the funding to be reinstated, right? Provide supporting documentation to every claim that you make, right? So maybe it's, once again, don't necessarily want to disclose your actual health condition or the health condition that's impacting the family, but perhaps you can get a doctor's note on doctor's letterhead that says, yes, the family's experiencing a significant medical issue that has the potential to cause a financial strain on the family. That usually is enough without telling all of your business to the school and disclosing any sort of health issues that you don't necessarily want to make public. Then share a success story. So share something that's relatable about, I know a family whose appeal successfully was reinstated after the loss of aid, and by detailing a parent's sudden job loss, right? So if I know appeals have really, really worked in my life. I know with other friends of mine, not necessarily with the financial aid process, but definitely with the application process. I remember in college, a few of my friends didn't get into the schools that they wanted to get into, and I encouraged them to go through the appeal process. And every single person that I've told to go through the appeal process actually had their admissions decision overturned, and they were able to get into the school. So don't underestimate the appeal process, no matter what it is, whether it's an admissions process or a financial aid process. Definitely it can't hurt, right? So there's nothing lost other than the time it takes you to write the letter. So I think the return on investment of potentially having some or all of your financial aid package that was reduced to be reinstated is definitely worth the time. And here's an insider tip. Always express appreciation for what was initially offered. Colleges respond positively when they sense a genuine gratitude rather than just entitlement or expectation that you owe them this money. I always say you get a lot more with sugar and honey than you do with vinegar. So, once again, you're making a request. Well, yes, it sucks that you did not get your original package that you were anticipating, but once again, coming with grace is definitely the way to go, as opposed to this is something that's owed to you, right? So next, I really want to shift around talking about how you can leverage your community. So engage with other parents in online forums. There's Reddit / financial aid. There are Facebook groups. There might even be support groups in your community, particularly if you have a small community. You're not the only one going through this. So getting together with other folks to be able to see, what are you doing? Or can you collectively come together and pool your resources to be able to help fill the gap, whether it be financial or non-financial, right? There's so many things that you can do. You can think about getting ideas from other people about what are they going to be doing to close the gap on their funding strategies. But the base of it all, it's just making sure that you don't feel like you're so alone. You're going through this with other people. The old saying of, misery loves company. There's a negative side to that, but there's also a positive side, like, hey, I'm not going through this by myself. And it's really great that there's somebody else I can talk to, another parent who can understand where I'm coming from, right? So, as we start to wrap up this particular section, I really want you to think about everything that we've talked about. One, you are not the only one going through this. There are many parents across the United States who are having to shape and shift what they are doing as it relates to their kids or their own personal education journey, because they might be going back to school because they want to get a better job. So everybody is feeling the push. So you are not alone. But two, really get clarity, get really clear information on what is actually happening. Is this temporary? Is it just for the year? Is it for the life of the time that you plan to be there, whether you're getting a bachelor's or a master's or an associate's? Get as much information and clarity as you possibly can on what is actually happening and what's the duration of what is actually happening. Is there an opportunity to come back next year and have your financial aid package adjusted, and what might be the things that you need to do now? So get that information. Next, join a support group, whether it's a Facebook group, whether it's a time there are meetups. You can go on Eventbrite and find meetups, but find other people who are actually going through the same challenges that you're going through. And just to be able to learn what are the resources that are available, what are things that you may not know that are available, how are they dealing with? You might find some strategies that might help you that you might not have even thought of. So Now, with all of that said, before we get into the next segment, I'm going to talk really quick about financial aid emergency planning, right? So, who is the person at the college that you need to be contacting? You should outline your household's financial flexibility, and you should also list potential side income opportunities, which we're going to cover in the next segment. So here's my closing thought for the moment. Remember, adapting to the community, adapting to these changes is going to be require flexibility and resilience and tapping into community support. Together, we're going to outline strategies and close the gap without compromising your family's long-term financial health. So join me after the break where I'm going to help you do college different better. Don't forget to watch us on YouTube at Do.Different.Better, and you can catch me on Instagram at Do Better with Elaine. I will see you after the break. Welcome back, my money savvy families. You're listening to the Do Different Better show. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen. And today we are tackling something that is probably impacting many of you right now as we head into the summer. And that is tackling financial aid surprises. You heard in segment one where I talked about myself and a good friend of mine. We had these financial aid surprises where we thought our kids were going to have a bigger financial aid package. And then at the last minute, we're told, no, it's not going to be the package that we were originally promised. And so we're all kind of dealing with how do we navigate the gap, right? So in segment one, I talked about how to understand and assess the new financial gap that you might be experiencing. Now we're going to be diving into some practical and tactical immediate strategies that both parents and students can start right away. Hopefully, one of the things that I'd like you to take away from this segment is really discover some realistic side hustles or income generating ideas that might be helpful, but also give you some options no matter whether if you are in an urban, a suburban, or a rural environment, that hopefully some of these or more than one of these is actually going to help you close that financial gap that you're experiencing. So, here are some opportunities that I'm going to talk about that are really focused on students, but you might hear something in there that as a parent might be helpful to for you. But I'm really going to first talk about for what can students do. So the first thing is tutoring and academic coaching. Many of us, I know for me personally, there's something that you're really, 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 really good at. My girlfriend, whose kid is going to school for music, obviously great talented musician. Even in high school he does like really great main stage performances. So maybe it's teaching music lessons or an instrument or several instruments or music theory as a something else, or maybe it's a language. Maybe you've been taking French for 6 years in high school, or Spanish, right? Or maybe you have a native tongue in something that could be something that you could actually use to generate income. Maybe you're really good at sciences. You know, lots of kids are struggling with math and science. So if that's something that you're a college student, or maybe you're a potential college student listening to this show right now, that's something that you could leverage into um, being able to generate some income for you. So here's some action steps that you can take. So create a profile on a tutoring site such as Wisant or tutor.com or Chegg Tutors or Varsity Tours, or go into your local Sylvan, go into some of the education centers or community centers that are in your community and say, make a flyer and say, hey, I'm available for tutoring. I don't know if the young generation remembers or has ever seen, you know, you make a poster and then you have your phone number on these little horizontally, and you make little slits so that people can tear off your phone number to give you a call. You know, something as simple as putting a Facebook post, right, or an Instagram post saying, hey, I'm available for tutoring for 4 to 5 hours a week. You know, these are the things that I tutor in. It's a great way for you to be able to generate income, and it's a great way for you to be able to leverage your networking skills, right? The sooner you can start to learn some of these habits, the better. They're only going to serve you in the long run. For The folks who are living in urban communities, obviously, there's a lots of in-person opportunities that are available through your local schools and through the libraries. But for our rural and suburban folks, think about online tutoring to reach clients worldwide. There are always people looking to learn English. So if that's something that's important to you, or that's something that you think that you can do in your non-school hours, that is a great opportunity. And you can just put it out on the internet, with the advantages of online paying like Zelle or Venmo or PayPal. It makes these things a lot easier. I definitely recommend being on a platform if that's an opportunity that's available to you, but certainly you can set up your own shop with your own website. It's fairly easy to do. You can probably get up and going in less than a day. So here's some other options. Another option is pet and home services. You could think about dog walking or pet sitting via platforms like Rover or Wag, or like get into some what I call guerrilla marketing, which is make a flyer and put it in people's mailboxes, right? Or put it into the box where the newspaper goes. I think legally it's not okay to put things in people's mailboxes if it hasn't gone through the mail. So I don't want you to get in trouble doing that. But you can post things on people's door unless the sign says no soliciting, right? But you've got people in your neighborhood who might need their dog walk. They might need their cat. I know sometimes when I'm traveling, I need my cat to be medicated. So I hire somebody to come in, check on my cat, make sure the cat bowl is full. And sometimes I'd rather do that with somebody who's local that I know in my community, in my neighborhood, than going on to a platform and have it be a stranger. So just know that there's lots of people out there that are looking for something like that. They might be going on vacation and they need somebody to grab the mail so that their mail isn't filling up in their box because they forgot to put a hold on their mail. So there's lots of things locally right in your own community as a college student that you can do. Another one is house sitting, right? So there are platforms like Trusted House Sitters or local community groups that are looking for people to house sit. I have a friend of mine, she's a digital nomad. She's made a whole living doing this internationally. So definitely there's not only opportunities locally, but there's opportunities nationally. I know for me, I am literally like 15 or 20 minutes away from Wisconsin. So there might be opportunities literally in the next state over, depending on how far or how close you live to the border. So don't just relegate yourself to just what's in your immediate community, but think a little bit outside the box of like, hey, can I go 20 minutes and also do this service? And so that's going to broaden your reach to be able to find more opportunities or clients. Once again, being online, and reaching out and creating a profile that this is something that you're available to do is all things that take a very low investment and that could have lots of returns in being able to close your financial gap, right? Here's another thing. Sell some of your old stuff. And when I say old, I don't mean decrepit and dilapidated. I mean things that you're not using anymore. My son loves to do that. He has collected things over time. And so over the course of time, he will be like, hey, I'm just going to sell this. It brings in some income for him, whether it be for play or be able to finance another thing that he wants to buy. It's a really great opportunity to be able to just actually Marie Kondo yourself in getting rid of some old things that are just clutter, right? Maybe they're in really, really good condition, but you just don't use it anymore. You've fallen out of love with it. That happens. That's okay. So put it on the marketplace. So there's things like Depop. You can put it on eBay. You can put it on Facebook Marketplace. I love going on Facebook Marketplace and finding things that I'm looking for. You never know. But also, I have used Facebook Marketplace to sell things in my house. I'm like, you know what? I don't need that end table anymore. I'm redecorating my house. It's in really, really good condition. It would be great to be for somebody to upcycle or use in their home. Another site is Mercari. Some of the other ones that I know of, I think they're not around anymore. But upcycling is a really, really on trend right now. And so it's a really great opportunity. Make 20, 50, 80 bucks on something. I know where we redid our deck. So our old deck furniture doesn't really fit the new scale of our deck. So it's really great condition, but we're going to be selling that in the next few weeks. So take a look on Facebook Marketplace if you're in the area and you're looking for deck furniture. But here's a key tip. You can also look for thrift or garage sale bargains to resale online for profit. I also know that in our community, we have a community garage sale. So check out and see if your community has a garage sale where you can sell everything at once instead of having, you may not have the time or the resources or the energy to piecemeal selling one thing at a time. So I know in our community, we have 1 week in the month of May where you can get a booth and you can just bring all your stuff and sell it on over the course of a weekend, and whatever you don't sell gets donated, right? So there's lots of opportunities. But finally, we're going to be talking about there's also digital products that you can sell. So once again, if you have something that you have created that can be turned into a PDF or is a framework or is a spreadsheet that people can use that will help them, that you've devised that has helped you, and you think that other people might find it helpful, you can sell it on Etsy or some other things that you like, your study notes. I literally bought a whole study note package for nursing programs for my son as a gift. It was his birthday, and so I bought. It literally cost me be like $80, but it was the notes of, and they were really good notes. I'm just going to tell you, they were amazing notes. I bought the whole entire package of notes that were the span of a person's whole first 2 years of nursing school. So once again, if you are a really good note taker, sell your notes, right? A lot of people struggle with taking notes. So that is something you can sell. Or once again, if you have a drawing that you've created of, like I said, my son's in nursing, so he constantly has to recreate drawings of health aspects of health, whether it be anatomy. And he is in an anatomy and physiology class, so he has to recreate those. Those are going to be really great if he decides to sell those and turn them into digital content. But the last thing that I will share is talk about monetizing your skills and your passions. You can live stream games or teach tutorials on Twitch or on YouTube. You can create graphics and edit videos and freelance and be on freelance sites like Fiverr or Upwork, where you can gain some extra cash to be able to close the gap, right? So now I'm going to be switching to some income opportunities for parents. You can also freelance your consulting or professional services. I have a marketing degree, so that's something that I could leverage to provide small businesses with some marketing or website development skills. You can get onto platforms like Upwork, like Fiverr, like LinkedIn Services Marketplace, and actually create a profile and say, hey, these are the 3 things that I can do. They usually take 3 hours, and this is what the price is going to be: 100, 150, 200, $300, right? But there's also some more practical things, like maybe you don't necessarily have a concrete professional service skill that you have, but there's opportunities like delivery and rideshare services. So DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, Instacart. And these are really great for urban and suburban areas. If you're in the rural area, you might want to think about Amazon Flex or USPS seasonal delivery services. They offer flexible schedules and solid pay for you to be make some extra money. Then there's actually renting out your space, or if you have extra property. This is really big, particularly on the coast, particularly San Francisco. I have a friend of mine, she rents out her space in her garage, and she rents it out for $400 a month. It's not a lot of space, but she rents it out, and that person has access, and they have a contractual agreement that is for a certain length of time for that person to have access to her garage. Right? There are a lot of people in San Francisco who live in apartments, and so they might need extra space, particularly if they've come from a bigger apartment. So that's $400 a month. She doesn't have to do anything for. Yes, she's got less space in her garage, but she parks her car in her driveway anyway. So it doesn't really matter. So she gets to do that. Another thing that you can do is list a spare room or a basement suite on Airbnb. This is really great for traveling nurses. Companies are always, for traveling nurses and traveling doctors, are always looking for housing for their folks. There's also international students. They're always looking for housing as well. I remember going back to the 80s. One of my best friends, he actually met his soon-to-be wife as a boarder in a room in someone's home. So there are people who will pay, international students who will pay. They just need a room and some light amenities. So You can rent out your room or a basement to be able to have somebody to be able to have access to, and it could be short term, it could be long term. You can say, hey, this is 3 months, it's 4 months. But once again, traveling doctors, international students, traveling nurses, there are companies that are always looking to have some stable housing for the people that they are doing that for their clients that they're making transactions with. And then finally, providing some local services, like lawn care, snow removal, organizing services. You're really good at organizing or being a virtual assistant. Maybe you're a stay-at-home mom. I have a friend of mine, she has an epileptic daughter. So she can't necessarily be at a job that has any certain schedules because she needs to be available in case her daughter has an epileptic seizure. So being a virtual assistant where your duties may not be time bound by having to be done between 9 and 5 is really great work for her because she can do that at any time. None of the work is time sensitive. And then finally, particularly for folks that are living in our rural communities, creating homemade products such as butters or jams, or maybe you can things, and selling them at the farmer's market. That's another great way for you to be able to generate some additional income. So as we kind of slide into the finish line, I just want to make you aware of all these things that can be available to you as you think about how you might be able to close the financial gap in paying for college, whether it be for books, whether it be for dorm fees. But really, I want you to think about identifying what is your next step. Now that you've figured out what is actually the thing that you need to do for what is the actual number that you need to close the gap on. And then now that you know what that number is, how are you going to break that down for the year, right? Because you're not going to raise all that money all at once. So then you need to think about, okay, how much can I raise per month? And then implementing one of those strategies that I've just shared with you of like, okay, if I say that I'm going to be selling butters that I made or canned peaches that I make, how many do I need to make that amount per month? If it, let's say it's $500, how many cans of peaches and how much kind of expense and can I afford that return on investment? How much investment do I need to make the amount of money to get to $500? And can I do that on a repetitive basis? So you might have to do a little bit of planning. So I want you to identify and commit to exploring at least one side hustle or income opportunity before the next episode. Set an achievable income amount. Can I bring in an additional $500 a month, $1,000 a month? Let's really be strategic. And here's a teaser for the next segment. We're going to go deeper into longer term strategies, including financial planning resources, debt management tips, and how to secure scholarships and alternative funding sources. So I don't want you to miss this, okay? So you've been listening to Do Different Better. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen. I hope you've been finding the content really, really helpful as you think about and reimagineer how you're going to pay for college, whether it be for yourself or be for a child. But I'm looking forward to catching you after the break. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. Welcome back, my financially resilient families. You are tuned into the Do Different Better show. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen, and today we are exploring lasting financial strategies to overcome cuts to financial aid packages. So, just to do a recap, I've discussed some immediate strategies for closing the unexpected financial gaps, like by leveraging side hustles, freelance opportunities, and leveraging community networks. Now what we're going to do is we're going to shift into long-term solutions to build financial sustainability, focusing on proactive planning, scholarships, alternative funding, and reducing education costs. So let's get to it. So once again, let's go back and re-look at your financial plan. So let's conduct a thorough reevaluation of the family's budget that is prioritizing what are the essentials, right? Tuition, housing, groceries, utilities, transportation, and books, right? And if you're taking a particular college degree that has some kind of speciality, like nursing, maybe architecture, those things also come with you're going to need some supplies. So you definitely want to factor in budgeting for different kinds of supplies. Sometimes the schools will have a list for you that you can then start to explore what might be some of the expenses that are tied to that. But what you definitely want to do is check out, especially if it's like a nursing program, see if there are websites or if the school has a website where students who have graduated are selling their materials or their supplies that they've already used. There's nothing wrong with getting a used stethoscope, okay? So obviously there are some things that you don't want used, but a lot of times school kids, maybe there are kids who decided to change their major and they're no longer being in that program, but check with the college to see if there are ways that where you can get some of them books and materials for a lesser expensive cost. Then, after you've prioritized the essentials, then think about trimming discretionary spending like subscriptions, like Netflix. I know Netflix now allows them to be on, I think, 2 devices. So, can you and your child share a Netflix account as opposed to you both sharing and having separate Netflix accounts? Or is there, instead of having 2 separate subscriptions for the gym, is there a discount if you both come under the same membership? So there are lots of things that you can do, and you want to go step by step by step. This is a little tedious process, but I guarantee you it's going to pay off in the end. But think about what can you cut out, like dining out, leisure activities. If you take a vacation every year, maybe for the next year or two while you or your child are in school, you're going to put what you normally would put towards the vacation towards the education expenses. But what you absolutely need to do is to create a clear, revised monthly budget. And there are lots of tools out there. I know I talk about YNAB, and there's also Monarch, and there's Every Dollar. There's also just a spreadsheet, right? So if you're using Mac, you can use Numbers. If you're using Google, you can use Google Sheets. Obviously, you can use Excel if you're on Microsoft. But creating a budget, it can be as simple as putting it into a spreadsheet, or you can use a more sophisticated online tool. Now, the next thing you want to do is to manage debt. So think about prioritizing loans with the lowest interest rates and be cautious of private loans. Sometimes when you get your financial package, it'll have on there private loans. And so you want to ask the question, is this a private loan? Is this through the school, or what is the actual organization or institution that is going to be managing that debt? And what are all the details? I know when my son filled out his financial aid, and then we got his package, there were loans that were in there and we could not find any information out about the loans regarding the interest rate. And so you might have to do a little digging. You might have to have some phone calls. So definitely dedicate some time to this. Don't think that you're just going to do this over coffee. Put on your calendar an hour or 2 or 3 to actually give yourself the time and the brain power to actually sift through all this information and write down, are there follow-up calls that you need to make, what the phone numbers are of who you need to contact, and writing down the questions that you want to ask once you actually get somebody on the phone. But there are some actual online tools where you can make student loan comparisons like Credible or Simple Tuition to find the organizations that are offering the best terms. But here's a warning. I really, really want to encourage you to avoid high interest credit cards or payday loans. They are financially dangerous and could devastate you and your family for a long period of time. And you're too smart for that. That's why you listen to this show. You're not going to do that, okay? So here are some other ways that you might want to think about reducing some of the college costs. Evaluating lower cost alternatives. I know for my son, he started off at a 2-year community college or junior college and then decided to transfer into a more expensive school. A lot of community colleges, the price point is so much more affordable. And you know what? No one's going to be like, you went to 2-year college. And quite frankly, and I think there's data on this. I don't have any data on this that I can share with you right now. Especially if it's a school that is a highly coveted school, coming in as a transfer student, the application process for a transfer student is oftentimes a lot easier and far less competition than coming in as a freshman. So this tactic is not only great financially, it's also a great strategy for you to be able to come out with less financial debt by going to the school that you want to go to, but also increasing your chances. Because not only do you have 2 years to be able to build up credibility of activities that you participated, getting your grades to where they need to be, but you've lessened the cost, your total college tuition cost, and you're now going in where there's a lot less competition than every single freshman across the United States and internationally trying to get into the freshman class. There's nothing wrong with coming in at the sophomore or junior class. Another thing that you can do is living off campus. I know with parents, sometimes they really want their kid to have that dorm experience. And I was having that conversation with my friends. I said, listen, maybe he just doesn't have the dorm experience the first year of school. Because if this expense is such a hardship, that might be just the hard decision that has to be made. And you'll have to find there are lots of other ways that they can get the college experience by joining clubs. They're going to be getting the college experience because they're going to college. Being in the dorm does not necessarily have to be a part of it, right? It's a great part of it. But once again, let's be financially realistic and let's not dig ourselves into stress and a hole when that is a very simple decision that can be made. I know my friend is just really, really stubborn. She doesn't want to make that decision. But living on campus and sharing housing to reduce expenses, getting roommates, that's also part of the college experience. So encourage your kid to be able, you don't need to live on the dorm. Go find other folks that you can move in with. Those are friends that you can have for life. So I definitely want you to reimagine your kids' college experience and not get so stuck in what you think their college experience should be, or even what they think their college experience should be. It's all going to be great. It's all going to be wonderful. But also consider your course overload and accelerated graduation to shorten the time of school. So what that might mean is, and I've shared this with my son, of like, hey, I want you to focus on getting done with school and being able to focus on school. So he works for me. I have the great privilege of allowing him to work for me so he can be flex his time as much as possible. But I told him I want his priority to be school. And if that means that he takes 16, 18, 20 credits and he thinks he can handle the load, he's going to get done with school faster, which means instead of maybe going to school for 4 years, he's going to school for maybe 3.5 or 3 years or 2 3/4 because he's taking an accelerated course load. But also, he doesn't have anything else on his plate. He's living at home, so he can really concentrate on doing just that. The other thing that I want to share with you are really looking at the scholarship opportunities, right? There are some really comprehensive websites. I don't know about some of y'all. I remember the days when there was a big, thick book. You had to go to the library and you had to literally comb through and write down all of the scholarship opportunities, the phone number, the mailing address, right? We didn't even have spreadsheets at the ready to be able to put in all that information. Now, a lot of all of that information is digitized. There's FastWeb, there's scholarships.com, there's Chegg scholarships, and there's Scholly. Scholly is really great. I know it used to be free. I think there's an expense for it now. But once again, for a marginal expense, if you even get one $1,000 or $500 scholarship, you've paid for whatever you paid for on the platform with a little bit of extra. Also look for local scholarships at your community organizations, maybe your church or the local church. If you don't necessarily go to church, you're still part of the community. Rotary clubs, there are unions, some credit unions have scholarships, but also businesses. If you know that there's a business that you and your family frequently go to, let them know you're going to college and say, hey, do you have any scholarships that would be available, or would you mind supporting me? You know, if you've been a customer of that business for a really long time, you never know, they might be able to give you a 500, 1,000, $2,000 to help support your college journey because you've invested in them by being a long-term customer. Listen, if you don't ask, you don't get. But even don't discount even the smallest of scholarships. $250, $500, $1,000, it adds up quickly. So don't overlook them. But you also want to be like mindful of how much time do they require, right? So you don't definitely want to spend 3 hours on an application where you might get $250. That's just not a good use of your time. So be mindful of like what the application is asking for, but you'll also start to build up a warehouse or a clearinghouse. A lot of these applications have the same questions. So if you build a Google Doc or a Word doc that has all of your responses to all of the questions that you've answered, and then you can start to actually Now you actually can be strategic of like, hey, haven't I answered this question before? And you can search through your answers and then pluck out one for a future application. Then there's also all alternative education funds. So there's employee education assistance programs. Starbucks has this, Amazon has this, UPS. A lot of the larger companies like Home Depot, law office sometimes have some sort of educational assistance, not only for the employee, but the employee children. So definitely ask your parents or go see your HR person at your job and see if there are some education assistance programs available at your place of work. There's also federal work study, and this is where the student can work at the college and get money from the federal government to do jobs on campus. I was a federal work study kid. It was a great thing. You also want to find out though whether or not that money is going to go straight to the student or straight to the school. When I was going to school, it went to straight to the school, and so any balance that I had on my bursar account or my student account, it would take care of that. Nowadays, some schools are making that money go straight to the student. So once again, this is a great opportunity to teach your student really good budgeting so that they don't just go blow all that money on a Friday night hanging out with the crew. All right. But there's other things like AmeriCorps, Peace Corps. There's also organizations that have benefits if you're in ROTC, but also there's some GI funding that might be available. So definitely look into those. And then finally, there's crowdfunding. So you can go on to GoFundMe or Fundly or Facebook fundraising to be able to tell a compelling story about your family's need, right? So, a couple of more things that I want to get into before we wrap up this show. So, I really want you to, I want to encourage you to attend financial literacy workshops. A lot of times they're available in your community colleges, they're free and they're low cost, but they're also offered by local banks and credit unions. They're going to help you figure all of this out, or at least give you some resources to help you get more knowledgeable about how you can leverage not only your current financial budget, but what might be other things that you can do to support you in this situation. But there's also some great podcasts. There's the College Investors. There's Stacking Benjamins. There's also Invest for Better. I'm an ambassador for Invest for Better. There's lots of resources that can help you. So definitely go out and educate yourself. Then also really think about emergency planning, right? Emergency savings planning. And I know I talk about this a lot. This is what it's for. So if you have an emergency savings plan, you might want to leverage it now, right? This is why you have it. This is one of the emergencies. Well, no, it's not. Maybe you're a hole in the roof, but this is an emergency. You definitely want to finish your college journey, whether it's, once again, it's yours or your child's. So, and maybe you're not taking the whole pot of money. Maybe what you say is, hey, I'm going to take half of what's in the emergency savings and I'm going to direct it here. But also think about what's the plan to start to build it back up again. You might want to also think about taking part of that money and putting it into a high yield savings account, right? That might help you close the gap as well, or put it into a certificate of deposit. Say, hey, I'm going to take 1/3 of this money. I'm going to put it into a high yield certificate of deposit that has a 13-month yield. And so in 13 months, I now will have the money that will fill the financial gap for the next year. So there's lots of things that you want to do. You just want to start to think strategic and financially about this. Once again, I want you to take advantage of some of the key resources. Like there's Every Dollar in Budgeting, there's scholarship search sites, and go to your local library. The reference librarian can also kind of help you, direct you. They might have some information about what are some local scholarship opportunities, but also what are some of the best online tools to find some scholarships that are relevant and meaningful for you. So, as we slide into the finish line, I really want you to remember tackling financial surprises takes resilience, it takes creativity, but it also, most importantly, takes action. with planning and the resources that we've covered here, I know that you've been equipped to overcome these challenges. But tell me how it goes. I want to hear. Send me a message on YouTube, hit me up on Instagram. I really want to know what of these things that you've employed that you think are really that have helped you, that did help you. What is something that you learned from the show that you didn't know? But here are some immediate next steps that I really want you to do. Identify at least one long-term financial strategy that you're going to start leveraging today for the long term. So whether that is getting, taking money out of your emergency savings and putting it into a high yield savings account or a CD, whatever that is. But what is the strategy you're going to use to keep your dreams on track? So in closing, I want to thank you for joining me. I hope that this has been helpful. You're listening to Do Different Better. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I'm your host, Elaine Rasmussen. Don't forget to catch me on YouTube. You can also catch me on LinkedIn as well as all the social channels. And I can't wait to see you next week when I show you how to do different better.